Fighting infiltration, Taiwan's voters learn how to combat cognitive warfare from China. A fight for young people. Taiwan's parties battle for their votes. Hong Kong's press freedom on trial. Media mogul Jimmy Lai faces life behind bars over allegations of foreign collusion. Plus,
out here on Taiwan's northeastern coast, the renowned Queen's Head could be on her last legs.
Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. A civil defense school is teaching people how to fight Chinese disinformation ahead of Taiwan's presidential election. Eugene Huang has this report.
Combating Chinese disinformation ahead of a crucial election. There are just weeks left until Taiwan chooses its next president. And China, which claims Taiwan and threatens to invade, is trying to affect the outcome, using tactics like disinformation. Civil defense group Kuma Academy held this public workshop to inform voters of what they should look out for. The organization has held hundreds of lessons like this one over the past year, ranging from educating people on countering China's cognitive warfare against Taiwan to providing basic knowledge on what to do if a war breaks out. The academy normally charges for its classes, but held this outdoor event in the central city of Taichung for free to spread awareness of Chinese efforts to the public.
General citizens, they need not only media literacy, they need some sort of ability to do, let's say, open source intelligence. They could trace, who are the cyber army. They could check maybe what's the source code, for certain websites. To understand the real strategy from China would be something that we need to learn.
Kuma Academy founder Puma Shen says China only needs to change the minds of 3% of voters based on the 40 million who voted in the 2020 election. That's about 400,000 people. Beijing's trying to get them to vote for a more China-friendly candidate.
With less than a month until Taiwan's presidential election, many voters are concerned about Chinese interference. This crowd is full of people of all ages, braving the cold weekend weather.
要防止假消息散布，因为大家现在都很相信那种片面的那种很耸动的标题，就觉得这个认知作战真的非常非常的重要。
以前是匪谍在你旁边，现在不是匪谍在你旁边，是那个网络在你旁边。
我大概从2018，应该是2018那次选举之后，才意识到其实台湾已经被影响蛮严重，所以从那之后，每一次选举都非常担心。
Some attendees at the event say they've already felt the effects of Chinese manipulation, both online and off.
现在太多影片都是中国做的影片啊，很多人都会丢啊。
像地方的公庙啦，有一些组织都是他们参加那个志工活动或者什么的，就是带头的那几个，他会利用一些资源，比如说请他们去南部玩啦。
他们现在对我们的这些攻击可以说是。
Many people here say they don't want to be ruled by China and are apprehensive about a more Beijing-friendly candidate taking office. This shows that China will play a pivotal role in the election outcome. But the Academy hopes its training means people vote based on candidate policy, not on disinformation. Huang Wang and Yujin Huang in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's ruling DPP swept to victory the past two elections with overwhelming support from young voters. But after 8 years in power, the party faces a struggle to keep them on board. Stash Butler explains.
25-year-old Wang Yimin has little time for politics. With Taiwan's elections less than a month away, the law student is busy with his thesis defense and has decided to vote the same way he did in the last elections for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, despite his disillusionment with how they've governed.
The reason that I'm still going to vote for DPP is because I don't think there's much of a difference. Currently, there are just no other parties that will be voted into office who would also who would support some of the issues I also support.
Young voters like Wang helped deliver the DPP to power in the last two elections on a platform of standing up to China, which claims Taiwan as its own. But after 8 years under DPP rule, many now say they want an alternative focused on domestic issues like housing and low wages.
And they're just really fed up with the geopolitics. They want a party that focuses on their needs at home, right? So when we talk about their needs at home, it's largely about economic issues, which is something that the DPP is not exactly highlighting right now.
So to freshen its appeal to young voters, the DPP is backing more progressive legislative candidates from outside the party, like Miao Boya, a 36-year-old former activist and founding member of the Social Democratic Party. This district in Taipei that Miao hopes to represent has never been held by the Democratic Progressive Party. If Miao can win here, the party is in with a strong chance of keeping control of the legislature. Miao believes she can win over local voters.
我想我们应该要选一个光明磊落的苗博雅，然后不要选择总是躲在暗处叫嚣、抹黑造谣。
But without a broader platform shift by the DPP as a whole, progressive individuals like Miao risk being swept up by anti-government sentiment, which leaves the DPP with a very real prospect next month of losing Taiwan's legislature, a result that could rock the region's balance of power. But for young voters like Wang, though wary of threats from beyond Taiwan's borders, the wait still goes on for changes within. Andy Xue and Stash Butler in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Now, Taiwan's presidential hopefuls are campaigning non-stop. Though they haven't given up on undecided voters, they've been turning lately to their bases. John Van Triest has this election update.
Supporters bundled up against the cold come out to hear presidential candidate Lai Ching-te speak. Though much of Taiwan's been shivering, the country's election campaign is hotter than ever. The atmosphere here in the southern city of Tainan is warm too. Lai used to be Tainan's mayor, and the city's been a reliable base for his Democratic Progressive Party. But all this only matters if people go to the polls. That's why Lai's here on this chilly day, to rally the base, this time with a promise on education. He wants to make high school and vocational school free starting next year. And there's more. With just 26 days until the election, no one can afford to waste time. And Lai's not the only one trying to whip up the base. At this event in Taichung, Kuomintang candidate Hou You-yi is focused on the most divisive issue in Taiwanese politics, China. China claims Taiwan and continues to threaten an invasion. Hou's Kuomintang wants friendlier ties and greater exchanges, including in trade. But that's not something everyone can get behind. In 2014, students worried about Taiwan's sovereignty occupied the legislature to block one pact the party wanted to push through. The pact was put on ice. But Hou says nearly a decade on, it's time to bring it back. And the Taiwan People's Party's Ko Wen-je has repeated the mantra that's driven his campaign, Taiwan's most significant third-party challenge in decades. He sees Taiwan's highly polarized bipartisan system as a problem that only he can do away with. It's a message that's won him his own base among the politically disillusioned.
Taiwan 必须是由一个清廉、勤政、爱民、爱乡土的政府来领导，而不是一个整天在制造社会的分裂、制造仇恨，然后大撒币、喊口号。 但是并没有实际解决台湾问题的政府来领导。
Two ways or three, though, Taiwan's electoral landscape is deeply split. The lines are drawn. And now, with just weeks left, candidates' focus is on building enough momentum in the base to push them across the finish line. Ryan Wu and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
The trial of Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai has begun. Lai faces life in prison under the city's national security law. Authorities say he colluded with foreign forces during Hong Kong's 2019 pro-democracy protests. His arrest the following year caused an uproar as Beijing crushed freedom of speech in the former British territory. His trial is being closely watched as a test of Hong Kong's judicial independence. For the implications of the Jimmy Lai trial, Rick Lauert spoke to Elaine Pearson of Human Rights Watch.
There's been a huge police presence, a lot of media attention. Could you tell us why this case is so important?
This is important because Jimmy Lai is probably Hong Kong's most prominent and famous political prisoner. He is the editor and founder of the Apple Daily, and he's being prosecuted for tweets, for comments that he's given in media interviews, for collusion with foreign forces under the national security law. And he could potentially face life in prison. There are 3 counts of foreign collusion and 1 count of sedition. So I think all eyes are in Hong Kong to see how this case will be prosecuted.
What does this case and this trial say about the current state of freedom in Hong Kong at the moment?
Well, I mean, Hong Kong's freedoms have been drastically eroded ever since the passage of the national security law. I mean, it makes all sorts of things that are unremarkable in a democracy suddenly illegal. It's had a huge chilling effect, not only in terms of the near daily protests that were occurring, basically being reduced to nothing, but journalists have had to leave Hong Kong. We're in a situation now where Hong Kong, which was once this bastion and center for press freedom in Asia, is now, really amongst one of the worst places to be a journalist.
And this trial is set to go on for the next couple of months at least. What will you be looking out for?
And so far, we have seen that in the pretrial proceedings, all sorts of due process violations. So, for instance, this is not going to be a trial by jury. This is a trial by hand-picked judges that have been selected specifically to deal with national security cases. We know that in these trials, so far under the national security law, there has been a 100% conviction rate. So things really are not looking good. We expect, that it's very likely that there will be a conviction. We know that Jimmy Lai was refused counsel of his own choosing. So from start to finish, even up until this point in all of the pretrial proceedings, we have been really, dismayed by the way in which the judiciary and the judicial independence that Hong Kong was once famous for has clearly been eroded when it comes to how the national security law is being prosecuted.
That was Elaine Pearson of Human Rights Watch talking to our reporter Rick Lauert about the trial of Jimmy Lai. EVA Airlines is denying allegations of unsafe practices following a string of incidents, including a ground collision between 2 planes and a maintenance worker falling to their death. Taiwan's main pilot union is threatening to strike if the airline does not step up its safety protocols. Tiffany Wong went to hear their demands.
Airline workers from one of Taiwan's 2 national carriers are gathered here in front of Taiwan's Transport Ministry to air their grievances ahead of a planned strike vote later this week. They're worried about safety and think EVA Airlines has cut corners to keep down costs, despite increased profits. Hundreds of Taiwanese pilots quit this past year, and there are allegations that foreigners were brought in to take their place using illegal intermediaries, which they're calling on the Transport Ministry to investigate.
我们的这些公安意外一直持续的在发生，因为大家为了赶时间，为了急救章而发生非常多的公安意外，从地安到空安也是，而飞行品质也越来越差。
Ahead of a busy holiday season, this could affect customers traveling for the Lunar New Year and overseas Taiwanese returning home to vote in January's elections. Devin Tsai and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A famous landmark has collapsed into the ocean in northern Taiwan. Our reporter Reese Ayers went to the coast to check out other at-risk rock formations.
Standing proud on Taiwan's northeastern coast, the regal Queen's Head Rock, named for its resemblance to the UK's late Queen Elizabeth II. Located inside Yelio Geopark, she's a popular tourist attraction. All eyes are now on her shrinking neck, however, after part of the neighbouring Elephant Trunk Rock collapsed into the sea over the weekend. The result of the collapse was discovered by an on-duty security guard.
我仔细一看，他的头跟鼻子都不见了。
4 years ago, geologists predicted that the natural stone arch would stand for at least another millennium, though Mother Nature clearly had other ideas.
可能就是因为海浪的拍打， 那个时候风非常的大。
Despite the missing trunk, tourists have still come to catch a glimpse of what's left of the arch.
觉得就看不到这个自然的风景了，可是这就是自然的现象，所以还是接受它。
But staff on site have been instructed to keep tourists away from the crumbling structure.
象鼻岩因为崩塌的关系，所以说现在游客暂时禁止进入，怕有危险的关系。
Further south, at the Queen's Head Rock, tourists gather to take what could be their final photos of this striking stone.
还蛮惊讶的，但是是预估内的事情，因为这时间到还是都会断，所以想说来记录一下。
Experts are worried the Queen's Head could be the next famous formation to collapse. As of now, her neck measures 118 centimeters around, a full meter thinner than it was 50 years ago. Geologists say the Queen could lose her head within 5 years. Typhoons and earthquakes strike Taiwan's northeast multiple times per year. It's impossible to know exactly when, but this Queen's Head will roll. Scott Huang and Reese Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
Stay with us here on TaiwanPlus, because after the break...
Welcome to Tap Out Island. The athletes you see behind me are about to wrestle until one says, Uncle.
Jimmy 过人生的话，你发现说我们大部分都是爱美的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
There's so many things that I wish the world could see.
It is amazing to watch this captain maneuver this giant ship.
It takes 3 days to cook this. The flavor is unbelievable, incredible.
And it's my turn to make something inspired by Chef Gore. It's going to be quite a challenge.
Can you imagine that?
It's surreal. Yes, so real.
I can't give up. I got some ass kicking to do.
Nice move. We're pushing each other to explore and experiment in new, different ways.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
很多时候是我们眼睛看不到的地方。
We might encounter mishaps and mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day,
it just transmits something straight from the heart. Yes.
Cheers.
Bon appetit.
It is about the fun and it's about the glamour and it's also about something much deeper than that.
Sometimes you just gotta seize the opportunity. You just gotta do it.
Have a place where you're appreciated for you exactly as you are, and where you can shine and be seen.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. South Korea's military says North Korea has launched a long-range missile. It was set off near Pyongyang and landed in the sea to the east of the country. This is Pyongyang's second missile launch within a day, after a short-range missile was fired on Sunday. Both launches come after North Korea condemned the United States and South Korea for raising tensions with military exercises. Japan and ASEAN have agreed to step up their defense and tech cooperation. The deal came at a special summit in Tokyo, marking 50 years of friendship between Japan and the Southeast Asian bloc. Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also agreed to work out a plan that would allow their militaries to deploy troops on each other's soil. That's as regional tensions with China grow, with Philippine and Chinese ships clashing over competing claims in the South China Sea. To learn more about how Southeast Asian countries contribute to wider Asian geopolitics, our reporter Joyce Zeng spoke with Greg Raymond, Senior Lecturer of Asia-Pacific Affairs at Australian National University.
Japan's just reaffirmed and boosted its ties with ASEAN. Can you explain why the Southeast Asian bloc is important for regional geopolitics?
ASEAN is a significant market and it's significant in totality. It's almost a GDP of $3 trillion. So when you look at it collectively, it's quite a significant economic part of the Indo-Pacific region. Amongst the multilateral structures in the region, it's the ASEAN-centered structures which are the most inclusive. And that's quite important because they provide a forum in which the great powers can conduct business. And the US and China wouldn't be happy with either one of them being the primary host of significant international meetings. So ASEAN provides a kind of middle ground.
As you've mentioned, ASEAN serves as this sort of moderator role, and a lot of Southeast Asian countries do have strong links with China. Can you explain how some of them navigate towing that line?
Here we have to draw a clear distinction between the ASEAN position, which is the collective position of the whole 10 states, versus the individual member positions, and there's quite a bit of distance between them. Vietnam and Philippines obviously have significant claims and significant disputes with China, whereas Thailand doesn't, and neither does Cambodia. And Cambodia is extremely dependent on China. So ASEAN's got some problems. It's not solving a major crisis with one of its own members, that is obviously in Myanmar with the civil war there. It's not really doing much about solving problems in the South China Sea or really doing anything to reduce tensions over Taiwan. There is a danger that ASEAN will become less relevant over time.
That was Joyce Dunn speaking with Greg Raymond, an expert in Southeast Asian politics and defense at Australian National University. An oil leak is not to blame for a massive spill that's been polluting the country's entire east coast since early December. Government officials used satellite images, drones, and simulations to try and find the source of this oil. While they haven't found the exact cause, they believe the waste oil could be from oil tanker cabins being washed out at sea. Volunteers have been facing an uphill battle trying to clean up the thick oil that's coated shorelines. Taiwanese badminton ace Dai Ziying has taken gold at the Badminton World Tour Finals in Hangzhou, China. She took the top spot after besting Spain's Carolina Marin in the women's singles. It's Dai's fourth career gold at that event. She's now ranked fourth in the world, ahead of the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics. Now, the concept is simple. Two wrestlers step onto the mat and they fight until one of them gives up. Our reporter Bryn Thomas checks out Tap Out Island, Taiwan's first submission-only grappling league.
Remember being 7 years old, and your older brother would put you in a headlock while shouting, "Say uncle, say uncle." It's like that, only people volunteer for it. Fighters gathered in Taipei this weekend for a new martial arts event they hope will bring more attention to their sport.
以前比较少这样的机会啦，就以前的比赛规则比较多，大家很多观众可能看不太懂。那相对来说，这比赛规则就很简单，你没有其他很多奇怪的分数，就是结束对手，让对手 tap 投降就赢了。
Basically, you win by submission. To do that, you have to put your opponent in a position where they're forced to give up or else be seriously injured. This is called a submission or a sub and is achieved by a choke to the neck, a joint lock to the arms or legs, or a torsion attack on the legs or ankles. It allows for techniques that are considered too dangerous and even a little unsporting in other events. The first event of Taiwan's first ever submission-only grappling league. Although the event is small, some big boys are here to test their mettle. It's called Tap Out Island, and although it looks and in fact can be dangerous, the fighters here have weighed up the risks.
There's always a chance of injury, but we have rules in place. If I tap, he stops, no slams. So the odds of actual injury are quite low, but it's always part of it.
This format strips away the judges, the puzzling rule sets, and the complexity that are a feature of many traditional martial arts competitions in Taiwan. Event organizers say it's easier to understand and is breathing a bit of life into a martial arts scene that's become too focused on small details.
Feel like no-gi sub only is more combat-based, and that's where I came from. And then so I want to bring this scene, which is relatively unknown here in Taiwan, because even some of the coaches and the referees here be like, wait, you mean there's no point and no advantages? I want to make jiu-jitsu more of a spectator sport. So I'm trying to promote the scene here to make jiu-jitsu more entertaining for everybody.
And while many in the small audience are here for a bit of action, the competitors will tell you it's more about the community.
It's like all the sports families here. We have so many people from different academy, but we are all family. Yeah, jiu-jitsu family.
Taiwan's jiu-jitsu and grappling community threw their backs into this event, and it passed without injury or incident. And whether participants won or lost their individual bout, the big winner on the day was the sport itself and its growing prospects in Taiwan. Devin Tsai and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
And that's it for TaiwanPlus News this evening. Follow us on social media for more of our reports. Before we go, enjoy these shots of a gingerbread city exhibition in New York. The theme this year is raising awareness of climate change. I'm Eric Al. Thanks for joining us.